Hey everybody, welcome to week 3 of Money Smart for Young Adults. So you'll notice this one looks a little bit different. That's because we had some technical difficulties with the recording of the live class, and so I'm having to redo it on our own. So you're not watching a recording of the live class this time, you're just watching me in my office doing it over a recorded Zoom call. So it's going to look a little different. There aren't any other kids here to bounce questions off of or anything, so it's going to be a little different today. But we will get through it, and next week we'll be back to normal again. So let's get started. First off, you guys should have done your pre-test. So we'll go over the answers to that pre-test real quick, the pre-assessment. So question number 1, select all that apply. Your financial goals should be, the correct answer is A, B, and C. They should be realistic. Your financial goals should be realistic financial goals, not, something completely unrealistic. My goal is to make $1 million by the time I'm 25. It's possible if your YouTube channel goes viral or something, but most likely not realistic. So keep your goals realistic, aligned within a time frame. So your goals should be time bound, as the way I like to say it. You need to have your financial goals be in a specific time frame. I plan to save $3,000 by the time I'm 18 years old, something like that. So a time frame, and then organized by milestones, kind of that same idea, time bound with milestones. If you want to save $3,000 by the time you're 18 years old, you might break it down and say, I want to save $1,000 each year until I'm 18 years old. So it's kind of milestones. Your goals should not be open-ended and flexible. That's not a smart way to do financial goals, and we're going to talk more about that in the lesson today. Number 2, the main reason it is helpful to track daily spending habits. Now, keep in mind, this is the main reason. A lot of these reasons are good reasons, but the main reason that you should track daily spending is so that you can know exactly how your money is spent. B is the correct answer. Number 3, before you prepare a spending plan, the 2 most important things to know are, the correct answer is A, total income and expenses. You have to know your total income and expenses in order to prepare a spending plan. Number 4, which of the following are generally considered examples of a flexible expense? So the obvious one here is D, personal expenses. If you think about a flexible expense, as opposed to in question 5, you have fixed expenses, and we will get into both of these in the lesson today. D is a flexible expense for question 4, and also C. A lot of people don't think of a cell phone bill as a flexible expense, but it actually is in some cases. It depends on your phone plan. There's 3 main types of phone plans. One is a prepaid phone plan, which is flexible because you're basically buying minutes in advance, and you could buy so many minutes one month and buy a different amount of minutes the next month, in which case it would be a variable or a flexible spending. Another variation is if you are on a fixed data plan. This is the most common. So my family is on a fixed data plan. We have 6 gigabytes of data available for our phone plan. But if we go over that, they will charge us extra. So your phone plan may be a fixed amount, but if you go over on your minutes or over on your data, sometimes there can be added charges in there. So that can be considered flexible. And then lastly, a truly fixed expense for a phone plan would be those unlimited everything data plans, where it's one monthly payment, probably a higher monthly payment than either of those 2 other options, but it's truly unlimited. So that would be a case where it could be considered a fixed expense, which leads us to question 5. What are some examples of a fixed expense? And the correct answer would be A and B, your car payment and your car insurance. Those are typically fixed. They do not change from one month to the next. Number 6, Adopt the habit of paying yourself first. On your worksheets, list savings as. So I don't really like this question. I believe it should be considered a fixed expense, and you consider it in your mind a fixed expense, you'll actually pay it or pay yourself every month. But for the purpose of this test, the correct answer in the material here is this is a flexible expense because you can, if necessary, not do this if you're going to come up short one month or another. Number 7, increasing cash flow. What does it mean to increase cash flow? The correct answer is D, lowering your expenses so you have more money at the end of the month. Now, that's actually only one way to increase your cash flow. There are two ways to increase cash flow. Cash flow is the amount of money that you have coming in versus the amount of money you have coming out every month. So you can either increase income to increase your cash flow, or you can decrease expenses to increase your cash flow. Now, which one of those is going to be easier in your situation? That might vary. Usually it's easier to decrease expenses than it is to increase your income. So the correct answer for number 7 is D, lowering your expenses so you have more money at the end of the month. Number 8, on a pay stub, deductions made for Social Security are often referred to as. Now, my in-person class all thought the answer was A, SSD, because it sounds right. But SSD actually stands for Social Security Disability, which is a function of Social Security, but is not what they call it on your pay stub. It is actually called FICA, which stands for Federal, where is it? It's in here somewhere. Federal Insurance Contributions Act. So if you see FICA on your pay stub, that's what it is. It's Social Security. And we'll talk more about that in the lesson today as well. All right, number 9, Social Security benefits may include, the correct answer is D, all of the above: retirement benefits, disability benefits, and survivor benefits. Number 10, on a typical pay stub, net pay, sometimes referred to as take-home pay, is often smaller than, the correct answer is B, gross pay. Gross pay is your total income before any deductions, whereas net pay or take-home pay is your income after expenses, and we'll talk more about that in the lesson today. Number 11, if you earn $10 an hour at a part-time job and you work 16 hours in a week, your take-home pay for that week will likely be, now if you run it just on a calculator at surface level, you might say A, exactly $160. But don't forget, regular W-2 jobs have deductions for taxes, Social Security, Medicaid, all those sorts of things, and we'll talk about that. But the answer is C, less than $160 due to deductions. And then number 12, if you are having trouble paying your bills, you should first, the correct answer is C, talk with a parent or guardian. Now, this class is for you guys who are young adults. And if you have financial troubles when you're young and either still living with your parents or freshly moved out or anything like that, call your parents, ask for help. They might be able to guide you to the right resource, or maybe they might be able to help out financially. Who knows? But call a parent or guardian. That should be the first thing you do. All right, so let's get into the lesson for today. Here are our objectives. So number 1, we're going to learn how to track your daily spending habits. We're going to prepare a personal spending plan or budget to estimate monthly income and expenses. Now, personal spending plan and budget are actually the same thing. Personal spending plan is just a nicer way to put it because nobody likes the word budget. Budget carries the connotation of like a negative, like you're constrained and you have to stay inside this budget and you can't spend your money and have any fun because you have to stay in your budget. And while in some ways that's true, but if you think about it as a personal spending plan, You're proactively planning how you're going to spend your money. You still get to spend your money. You're just planning proactively where you're going to spend your money, where you're going to get the most joy out of it and the most use out of it and be the best stewards of the money that God has given you. So that's your personal spending plan or budget. We're also going to learn identify ways to decrease spending and increase income. We'll talk about ways you can do both of those things. And then lastly, we'll talk about how to identify budgeting tools that will help you manage your money. So those are the objectives for today. So number one, why should I create a spending plan? Sounds like a lot of work. Sounds like it's going to limit me on how I want to spend my money. Why should I do it? So one reason is so that you don't mismanage your money. It is very common for people to get paid on Friday, blow it all buying whatever they want, and then be broke by Monday. It's actually really common. People do that. And it sounds irresponsible and ridiculous, but it's actually a very common thing. And that is the number one main reason you want to have a spending plan or a budget, is to make sure you don't spend all your money before your bills are due. And then when it comes time to pay your car insurance, you don't have the money to pay it. You're in trouble. So that's why you want to build a spending plan. So first thing we're going to talk about is financial goals, setting smart financial goals. Now this, I actually reworked this slide for this class because they had this a little bit different, but I like the SMART acronym. SMART goals is an acronym for any kind of goal in your life. It isn't just financial goals. This can be weight loss goals, it can be educational goals, any kind of goal in your life should be a SMART goal. Now, SMART goal stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So specific and measurable carry the idea that your goal has to be specific. It can't be a vague goal. My goal is to save money. That's not a specific goal. That's a vague goal. A specific goal is, like using the example I said earlier, I want to save $3,000 by the time I'm 18. That's a specific, measurable goal. Also, they need to be attainable and relevant. Attainable in the sense that they have to be realistic. They have to be an achievable goal, not something that sets the bar so high that you're just going to fail and not even try, but something that's a realistic, attainable goal, and relevant to what you're doing. You don't want to have, my goal to save money is I'm going to eat less. Kind of relates if you're buying a bunch of fast food, but probably not exactly a relevant goal. And then finally, time bound. You want to have a time frame in which you plan to achieve this goal. So that's kind of the model you want to think about as you build any goals in your life, and memorize this acronym. It's really helpful for a variety of goals in your life, but specifically we're talking about financial goals. So a good financial goal for someone in a lot of your situation where you're in high school and you're thinking about eventually moving out and starting out on your own, you want to save up some money for your first apartment. And when you move out, you're going to need to pay your first month's rent, your last month's rent, a security deposit. You're going to want to have money on savings on top of all of that to pay for any unexpected expenses. So you're going to want to have a pretty decent amount in savings before you move out. So if you start now and build a SMART goal to achieve that goal by then, you'll be ready when the time comes. All right, so how do we prepare a spending plan? So it starts with keeping track of your daily spending. You can't really build a spending plan if you don't know where your money is going. Number two, you need to determine what your monthly income and expenses are for the month before they are due. And the reason for this is because sometimes you have bills that are pretty large each month. Like especially when you're an adult, rent can be more than an entire paycheck. In most cases it is. So you really need to plan ahead. Like you can't just rely on one payday to pay that rent. You might need to have multiple paydays saved up to pay that rent. So that's why you want to determine your income and expenses by the month before they are due. Thirdly, you're gonna need to find ways to decrease spending or find ways to increase income. Now these come into play if you build your spending plan and find that you're in default. You're actually spending more money than you're making. And we'll talk more about that later. All right, so on that vein, it's helpful for us to discuss the difference between a need and a want. So an example of a need is transportation to work every day, transportation to school. That is a need. Food is a need. You need to have some kind of food. Now, sometimes there can be a blurry line between a need and a want, especially with things like that, because food that you need can be as simple as turkey sandwiches at home. A want might be, fast food or takeout pizza, things like that. They're going to be a lot more expensive. And if you're tight that month, you might need to recognize that difference and opt more for the turkey sandwich and, give up the pizza or something like that. Do you know where your money goes each month? To control your money, you need to understand where your money goes, and you need to keep a personal spending diary. So this is a very helpful thing. If you look at activity 1 in your participant guide, that's what this looks like. So this is a little chart where you can write down the money you've spent in a given week. And I would encourage you guys this week to go ahead and keep track of this. Even if you don't have much to put on there right now, anything you do spend, write it down. Write down what you bought and how much you paid for it. This can be a helpful exercise. All right, the next step is we're going to talk about income and expenses. So this is step 2 of building your personal spending plan. So income is money that comes to you, and it can come from a variety of sources. It can come from jobs, working somewhere as a cashier or whatever. It can come from allowances. It can come from interest and dividends. If you're one of those 16-year-olds that owns stock in the stock market, probably not, but it is a thing. And there are other sources, selling things, whatever the case may be. And then expenses. Expenses are things that you spend money on, including bills, transportation expenses, bus fares, car insurance, gas, whatever the case may be. And then entertainment, of course. So these are examples of expenses. So turn to page 13 in your participant handbook, and we have here an example of a monthly income and expense worksheet. So this is like your basic level budget or spending plan, and we've filled out the majority of it for you. So in this example, this person has a car payment of $150. Car insurance is $30 a month. They have a loan payment of $10 a month, and they pay themselves $25 a month to their savings account. They also have flexible expenses. So these are expenses that can change every month. But when you're doing this, it's a good idea to aim high on these, to kind of go on the high end of what you think you're going to spend. That way, if you go under, you'll have extra money left over in your bank account, which is always a good thing. So gas, car maintenance, $60 a month, cell phone is $30 a month, entertainment's $40 a month, personal expenses of $25 a month. So let's say that this individual has a monthly income of $425. So on the my income side, you can write job. This person has a job and their income is $425. So then go ahead and calculate all of that. And you can pause this video if you need to, and calculate it all out and see what their total income and their total expenses are in this case. So the correct answer should be 425 for the income side, and I believe it was 370 for the expenses side. Now, when you build this for yourself, one thing I highly recommend is doing what's called a zero-based budget. A zero-based budget. Now, what a zero-based budget means is those two lines, the income side and the expense side, should be equal. They should both end at zero. You should have all your income planned out and all your expenses planned out to where your expenses equals the same amount as your income. The reason for that is you want to plan for every single one of your dollars. Now, a lot of people don't think this is the way to do it. They think, well, as long as my income exceeds my expenses, then I'm okay. And that's true, but what's invariably going to happen is you're going to get to the end of the month and your bank account's going to be about the same as it was at the beginning of the month. You're going to be like, well, where'd that extra money go? You know, my expenses that I planned for were less than this. I should have more money in here, and I don't. Where did it go? Probably went to some unnecessary expenses that you even forgot you even did. So I encourage you to go with a zero-based budget where you plan for every single dollar. And then if you can stay within that spending plan or budget for the whole month, and let's say some of those flexible expenses actually come in lower than expected, then you should end the month with more money in there than when you started. And then you have some bonus money that you can, celebrate, buy yourself a pizza or whatever, or give extra money to missions, or who knows, whatever you want to do at that point. But that's a good place to be. So I encourage you to do that. All right, now let's talk about that income. So take-home pay is different from gross pay because of deductions. All right, everybody turn to page 15 in your handbook, and let's look at this pay stub at the top of page 15, the fashion place at Walnut Grove Shopping Mall. So we have the employee's name is Grace. So I should say this is what a pay stub will basically look like. They all look a little bit different, like format and everything, but all this information will be on a pay stub that you get from your employer. So first you have your name on there. You have the date you were paid. She was paid on August 19th. Her hourly rate is $10 per hour. She worked 16 hours. So her gross pay is $160. But notice here we have some deductions. So these are deductions that your employer will take out of your paycheck before they ever pay you and pay them to all of these entities. So you see here we have federal income tax being the largest of them all at $20, state income tax at $7.50. And yes, you will find the biggest deduction from your paycheck is probably going to be taxes. And you're going to feel a little bit like this guy.
Oh my gosh. Where's all your money gone, Daddy? Taxes. 9, 10, 11. Let me fix my houses. It's okay. It's part of the game. No, it's not fun. It's not fun to what? It's the worst part of the game. Oh, it's what? Taxes.
Yes, they are. They are the worst part of the game, aren't they? It is very true. So I just thought that was funny and wanted to share that with you guys. So yes, taxes are the biggest expense out of your paycheck, but they are necessary. So, and there's honestly nothing we can do about it. So there you go. Anyway, there are other expenses as well. So you see the third one down there is Social Security, or FICA. So Social Security, you might be wondering what that's for. So Social Security is a Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's Social Security. It's a program that was put in place by the federal government, I don't know, 100 years ago, that basically operates as a security net for senior citizens and people who fall on hard times in America. So there's a variety of benefits that they offer, including retirement benefits, which are paid every month to eligible retired workers. This can happen as early as age 62. You can start drawing Social Security, and it's just a monthly amount that gets paid to you every month for the rest of your life once you reach age 62. They also have disability benefits. So these are for people who are under age 62 who are unable to work anymore due to disability, like fully disabled, unable to work anymore. They can collect Social Security benefits, which is a monthly amount for them to pay their living expenses for the rest of their lives. They also have family benefits, which are paid every month to spouses and children of retired or disabled workers. And then survivor benefits are paid to those same, the widowed spouse or children of a deceased worker. If they die while the children are still in the home, they can earn Social Security benefits there as well. And then that's actually it. The next one's Medicare benefits, but that's a separate line on here. So that's basically what Social Security is. So when that money is taken out of your paycheck, it's actually given to the Social Security Administration, who then uses that money to pay for those expenses for retired workers, disabled workers, and descendants of deceased workers while they still have children in the home. So that's what that's for. And then the last one is Medicare, Medicaid, which is kind of the same idea. It's another government program that takes care of medical expenses for retired, disabled, and also just families that don't have enough income to pay for insurance on their own, because medical insurance is probably one of the biggest expenses of most workers. And you'll see there's a line on here, the insurance is zero. The reason it's on there, so we'll talk about it, the reason it's zero is because she's a part-time worker. Most of the time, well, first off, I guess I should say medical insurance 95% of the time is going to be obtained through your employer. If you work any kind of, full-time regular job, if you're self-employed, it's different. But if you are a regular wage earner worker at any kind of field, whether you're in the medical field, retail, anything, software engineer, doesn't matter. Pretty much everyone gets paid, regular paychecks. They get pay stubs like this, and they get the deductions out of it. And most of the time, your employer is going to provide health insurance for you. Now, they usually pay part of it, and you still have to pay some. So there will be a number there of where another thing they're taking out of your paycheck. But for people who cannot afford health insurance, there is such a thing as Medicaid that they can apply for through the government to help them cover medical expenses. And that's what you're helping to pay for with that little $2.40 contribution there on this pay stub. So that is deductions on your paycheck. So as you can see here, Grace's gross pay was $160. Her net pay is $121 after paying all those deductions. And that's how much she's actually going to get in her paycheck direct deposited into her bank account. All right, we just talked about Social Security. There's a whole slide that I forgot I had. So there you go. There's everything we just talked about. All right, and we just already did that. Okay, next up, let's talk about expenses. So fixed expenses stay the same every month, like car payments, rent, and savings. Ideally, should be a fixed expense, as I said. Flexible expenses change from month to month, like electricity. Electricity is a flexible expense. It changes every month. Food changes every month. Clothing, one month you might not need to buy any clothes. Another month you might need to buy an entire new winter wardrobe. And entertainment. All of these are flexible expenses that change from month to month. You need to plan for that. So Let's say you built your spending plan and you have a problem. Your expenses are higher than your income. You are operating in a deficit. What do? Well, usually the easiest thing to do is to decrease your expenses. So, what are some ways that you can decrease your expenses every month? Well, you can start with unnecessary expenses like entertainment or clothing. Most of the time, unless you've gotten bigger and you need to buy new clothes, you don't need new clothes most of the time. You can wear the clothes you got. You can wait a month and buy things later when you have more money in the bank. Same with entertainment. Entertainment is great. Entertainment is helpful, but if you're going to run short, um, you really need to pay for the more important things first: your transportation, your living expenses, your utility bills, um, things like that. Food is important. Now, what you eat can change. Maybe you need to buy, the off-brand cereal this month instead of the name brand or whatever it is. But you can adjust those expenses. You can try to decrease your spending in those ways. And then on the flip side, you can try to increase your income. Now, a lot of people think that this is just not going to happen, but there are a variety of ways that you can do that, especially in the short term. So, like, other than trying to find a new job or getting a raise or something like that, which maybe you should, but other ways you can increase your income include getting a second job for a little while, doing odd jobs on the side like mowing grass or babysitting, things like that, or even selling things that you have laying around. Maybe you have an old bicycle that you don't ride anymore. You could probably sell it on Facebook Marketplace and make some money that way to cover an unexpected bill or whatever the case may be. You can also do crafty things and sell them. Some people are making a lot of money right now, making things on, what's the Etsy? It's a website that you can go to and people just make things, just creative little things. If you're a artsy person or creative, maybe you can do something like that and sell it. So that's an option too. Those are ways you can increase your income. All right, so lastly, we're going to talk about planning tools. So once you've created your spending plan, how do you make sure that you're on track with that spending plan? So there's a couple different ways you can do this. If you turn to, I believe this is in your book, if you turn to that's the wrong one. Page 18 of your participant guide, you have a little calendar on here. Now, this is my favorite way to plan your expenses a month in advance. Now, some of these things, like, I don't know how you expect to know that you're going to need $25 for personal care on Tuesday, but if you look at, you get your paycheck on Sunday, then you have your car payment, your car insurance, your cell phone bill, your loan bill, all those things are set bills on set days. Go ahead and write those on the calendar to help you remember what day those are coming out and make sure that you're going to have enough money in your bank account to pay those bills when they come due. This is a very helpful tool to do the month ahead of time. The other thing I recommend is budgeting software. There are a lot of options out there for budgeting software. Some bank accounts even offer it in their regular online banking. They have budgeting software built in to help you manage your money well. If they don't, there are alternatives out there that are free or very low cost budgeting apps. Like mint.com is my personal favorite. I really like mint.com. It's completely free. They link to your bank account automatically, and they will help you categorize your expenses and plan for a month ahead at no cost. It's a great tool. There's also another one out there that's a lot of people like called YNAB. You Need a Budget. You can just Google that, and I don't know if there's a cost for that one or not, but there are other ones too. Like Dave Ramsey has one called Every Dollar. There's lots of options out there to help you with this, and they're just computer programs to make this easier and more streamlined. to build your spending plan or your budget. I highly recommend that. Last thing, I think I said that last time, but this is the actual last thing. Help. I cannot pay my bills. What do you do if you have built your spending plan for next month and you are not going to make it? You're not going to have enough money for everything you need to do. The first thing you should do, and this is to you guys in this class, what you should do first is talk to a parent or guardian. That should be step number one. Talk to a parent or guardian and see what they can do to help, whether it's advise you and walk you through it. Maybe they can see things differently, or maybe they want to help, or whatever the case may be. That should be step number one. Step number two, other things you can do is see about what you can cut out. Can you cut out entertainment expenses for a month? Can you go a month buying cheaper food, or whatever the case may be, something like that. Also, think about what bills will be the most important. And the main things you want to keep in mind is rent. Rent should be number one. You know, going a month without your cell phone isn't as big of a deal as getting behind on your rent and possibly getting kicked out of your apartment. It's a big deal. So rent should be number one. Number two should be your utilities, gas, electricity, things like that. That should be very, very important. Thirdly, transportation. Transportation is super important because being able to get to work every day preserves the income that you have. If you can't make it to work, how are you going to make more money? Transportation is super important. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, debts, bills. Not paying your debts on time can be disastrous to your credit, which we will get into later on in other modules in this class. And you definitely don't want to do that if you don't have to. But it is secondary to paying your rent on time, getting your utilities paid, and making sure you have transportation to go to work. So keep that in mind. Prioritizing your bills, cutting unnecessary expenses, and ask for help if you need to. All right. There you go. Forgot about that slide again. Yep. Also, yes, on the loan side of things, if you have loans that you don't think you're going to be able to make a payment that month, talking to your creditors as soon as possible will actually help. You will find they are actually quite willing to work with you if you are finding yourself in a difficult financial position. So call them before you miss a payment and talk to them about what your options are. Okay. You know what? Yeah, let's do this. All right. Turn to page 20. Page 20. Activity 6, a hole in Todd's pocket. So Todd gets an allowance. He does chores around the house for which he earns $100 a month. His cell phone bill is $30 a month. The rest of his money goes towards savings, $10 a month, going out with his friends, $25 a month, clothes, MP3 downloads, and video games, $35 a month. Right now, he has $70 in the savings. Well, last month, Todd went much too far over his allowable minutes. His cell phone bill ended up being $256. If he continues to pay his regular payment of $30 a month, he will continue to owe the extra charges. So, what are some things that Todd can do to pay his cell phone bill? So, some ideas that were put forward in class. Number one, he can stop buying video games for a few months, right? That's an obvious one, cutting down his unnecessary expenses. He can temporarily stop putting money towards savings and pay it towards that bill. That's another one. So remember, there are two different ways you can attack this. You can decrease your expenses. You can also increase your income. Maybe Todd can get a part-time job. Maybe Todd can do some odd jobs. Maybe he can mow his neighbor's grass or something like that to get a little bit of extra money to pay that down. So any of these ways are things that Todd can do to get himself out of this situation. And I will say also, if you remember, the cell phone bill ended up being $256. That's an example of how a cell phone bill can be a flexible expense. Sometimes it can be a lot more than you expected. So that is it. So that is the class for today. I hope this was beneficial for you guys. Don't forget to do the post-assessment knowledge check and turn that in next week. And we will see you next time. Thanks a lot.